Every runner has a story. What about you? What's your story? Running isn't easy. We've all overcome struggles to get to where we are. Maybe you're struggling now. What is it that stands in your way of reaching your full potential as a runner? And are you willing to do what it takes to get there? If you're not sure, listen to this story about how this runner overcame an obstacle that seemed absolutely impossible. And remember, if they can do it, you can do it too. What are your running goals? Do you need help recovering from a running injury? Do you need help developing a training plan? Maybe you've never ran before and you just want to get started. Let us help you reach that big goal of yours. Here at Body Smart, we help runners maximize their performance and stay on the road. To learn more, ask questions, or to set up your first free appointment, go to bodysmartutah.com or call us at 801-479-4471.
All right, welcome to the Run Amazing Utah podcast. I'm Mark, this is Melody, and we have a special treat today. We've got Tim Hurst here with us. So introduce yourself, Tim.
Yes, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. My name's Tim Hurst, and I live here in Utah, and I love to run.
So he just crushed it on a metabolic test, so he's a fat-burning beast. So
yeah, how did that go? That was pretty good?
Yeah, he did. He killed it. He stayed in the fat burn zone through most of the tests. So
nice.
He when he put it on the incline, I could have gone all day running, but when he put it on the incline, that's when I said, I'm not going to be able to do this much longer.
But anyway, long story short, he crushed it. So it was really awesome. Well, so Tim, just give, for everyone that is listening that can't see it, give us an introduction, kind of give us an overview of your story.
Okay.
Where you are today.
Well, as a kid, as a teenager, I always loved to run. I was on the track team. I was on cross country. I loved it. And then after I graduated high school and I was going to college, as most poor college students are, I couldn't afford a car. So I managed to get a motorcycle, which was fantastic on the gas. $1 would take me all week. But I didn't realize that motorcycles are invisible, and it seemed almost every day I nearly came close to getting killed. But as a teenager, I was probably 19 going on 20. I didn't realize there was a problem with that. One day, I woke up in the hospital. I thought I was actually having a dream. I couldn't move. My whole body was suspended in the air. And I could barely look. I noticed I had hoses coming out of my mouth, my nose. My whole body was in a body cast. And I immediately passed back out and went into a dream state again. And I kept waking up for longer each time, enough to realize I'm not having a dream. Something definitely has happened to me. And one day I woke up, this is probably about the 6th or 7th time I woke up, there was an angel in my room. So I assumed I had died. She was all dressed in white. Now back in the day, nurses of course today dress in blue and red and orange. Back in the day they only dressed in white. And I tried to call out to her, but I had so many hoses coming out of my mouth, all I did was gurgle. And she turned around and I realized it was a nurse, not an angel. And she said, "Now just lie still. You've been in an accident. You can't move." And I started to laugh because I thought she was kidding. And that made me pass out, just the effort of laughing. Well, then I woke up and most of I still had the hoses in the nose, but most of the ones from the mouth were gone. And some of the tubing coming out of my arm was missing. And they had me more flat, not suspended by a series of ropes and weights. And that had actually been several weeks. And I woke up and there was a doctor there and he said, "Yeah, you've been in a terrible motorcycle accident." And I'm thinking, well, gosh, I have school, I have work, I have all this stuff I have to do. How long have I been here? couple days. He says, no, you've been here 4 months.
Whoa.
Yeah, which just, I said, well, what's going to happen to my life? He says, don't worry, it's going to be a long time. Well, it turned out it was an entire year before I could go home. And when I left, I was paralyzed from the waist down. I couldn't walk. So I actually left in a wheelchair to recover at home, and they had a bed and the whole thing set up for me there. I had to be lowered in and out of the bathtub, and this is really the gross part, but I couldn't go to the bathroom on my own either because I was paralyzed.
Yeah.
Well, I thought, oh, this is just terrible. I can't go through the rest of my life like this. So as the months went on, my spine had not severed or anything, but it was bruised from me flopping around. And I learned my story. What had happened, a garbage truck, fella had decided to come to work drunk that morning, had gone over the line, and we had hit each other head on. It was his fault, but it didn't matter because nothing happened to him, obviously. Totaled my motorcycle, broke practically every bone in my body. They wanted, now they removed the lower part of my left leg, but they wanted to take my right leg as well. I've had, I don't know, 17 or 18 surgeries on it. They've removed bone from my hip and put it down there. They wanted to remove my arm too. My bone came out there, but they were able to save my arm and my leg. And after I was home, maybe, oh gosh, it's hard to remember, 5 months, I started to get feeling in my leg and I could move it. And by that time, most of the plaster was coming off. I was still going in about once a month for another operation. I probably had 17 altogether.
Wow.
And the doctors showed up. That's back in the day when they made house calls, and they all showed up and they applauded me when I was able to move my foot for them. And then they started to leave, and I said, wait, what does this mean? And they said, oh, you're going to be okay. Well, another month went by, and they fitted me for a prosthetic leg. It was made of wood. It weighed about 1 million pounds. But it didn't matter. I loved it. And it was a club, and I could barely walk on it. But I started with crutches and a walker, learning how to walk again. It took quite a long time.
Wow.
Well, as prosthetics, the science, the technology got better, the legs got better, and now I have this thing which is from Star Trek. Yeah. Now this is my running blade. I also have a walking leg, which is even more advanced than this.
Okay.
It has an ankle that shifts, and the first time I wore it, I did a head dive because I was so used to wearing a stiff prosthetic. To actually have an ankle, I didn't know how to do it. And I fell right over, and I hit my head on the bar that what I was supposed to grab. But I'm a pro on it now.
Yeah.
But as far as this leg goes, I started running about 13 years ago on my walking leg after I saw a made-for-TV movie. And, oh, this is so exciting. It was Terry Fox, the Canadian. He lost his leg to cancer. And on an aluminum pole, basically, he decides he's going to run across Canada, thousands of miles. He was basically doing a marathon a day for, I don't know what it was, like almost 30 days before the cancer killed him. He never actually made it across, but what an inspiration. And downstairs in my man cave, I don't want anybody to know I have a man cave, but it has all my treadmills and my elliptical bikes and my weights and everything down there. I have a big poster on the wall of Terry Fox. And I thought, well, if Terry Fox can run across Canada on an aluminum pole, my walking leg is so much better. I could probably start running. And, everybody said, oh, you're just crazy. Don't do that. And I would get out in the morning. I actually practiced in the basement because I didn't want people to laugh at me. I wanted to make sure I could actually do it. So I'd go out early before the cars were out, and I would run. I could only run around the block before the pain, before it started to hurt. Well, a month went by, I could run twice around the block. Pretty soon, within just a few months, maybe, less than 6 months, I could run 3 miles. So I entered a 5K, but I wore long sweats so nobody would see. And I did pretty good. And I thought, wow. So I started entering these 5Ks.
Yeah.
And I knew I would never run a marathon because the pain. Well, one day, I live in South Jordan, and I'm driving up to Ogden, and I see a billboard on the freeway of this guy, and it was one of those motivational billboards where it says, you can do anything you want or something like that.
Yeah.
And it had this guy, and he's running, and he had this leg on, this exact leg, this blade. They call it a blade. It's a big, looks like a bow, an arrow, a bow. And it's made out of the same thing, I guess, that the stealth bomber's made out of or something. Well, I nearly drove off the freeway and killed myself because I was staring at this. I called my prosthetist and I said, you're not going to believe what I saw. I saw a picture of this guy, and he had this big giant, it looks like a giant question mark, a big hoopy thing he's running with. And he says, oh, yeah, those are brand new. They're called running blades. I said, I want one of those. You got to get me one of those. And at the time, I was teaching karate. So, which helped my insurance because they said, well, we need to prove to get you this, because you don't need this, that it's for your work. And I said, yeah, I'm a karate instructor.
Brilliant.
Awesome.
So the insurance paid for it. Well, within a week, I was running from 3 miles a day to 5 miles.
Awesome.
Within a month, I was up to 8 miles. And everybody was telling me, oh, you've got to run a half marathon. So it just so happened, the Salt Lake Marathon and half marathon were coming up. And I was really scared, first off, because I had a picture of me just lying in a ditch on the side of the road, dying. Well, I ran it, and I did great. I did it in like 2 hours and 15 minutes or something.
Awesome.
Yeah. And so I did another one a week later, and then another one a week later.
Oh
and then I got bored. And I thought, well, this is kind of boring. These are boring. So I thought, well, I'll keep training. And then the following January, I decided I'm going to train and run a marathon. I'm going to run a marathon. So that following year, when is it, April, I think, I ran the Salt Lake Marathon, the full thing. But again, I didn't want to run it because I got really scared. So my wife came and she said, oh, I don't want to cry.
It's okay.
She's been absolutely I wouldn't have done any of this without her. Okay. She came and she said, well, you can run a half marathon. And I said, well, yeah, because I run a whole bunch. She said, so I'll be there. I'll bring the car. I'll be there. If you get there and you decide you can't run, just jump in the car. Nobody will know, and I'll drive you home. And I thought, yeah, fair enough. That's yeah, okay, I can do that. Well, I was running that morning, and sure enough, boy, about mile 10, I was dying, and they had a water stop at mile 13. And I looked up, and I thought, okay, this is it. I'll stop. I'll jump in the car. We'll go home. And now I'm going to cry again.
Oh.
Okay. I looked up, and I saw her, and she's all cheering. And I get up there, and I grab a cup of water, and I like drank it. I crushed it like you'd crush a beer can, But it was just paper. It was a Dixie cup. But it made me feel really manly. And she said, so are you ready? Let's hop in the car. And I threw that paper cup in the trash can because I would never litter. And I said, I'm going to fish this. And I took off and I finished it. And it wasn't, it wasn't like that. It wasn't easy. And I didn't finish it and say, let's go lift weights or anything. I was dead tired, and I thought, I would never walk again. And for the next 2 weeks, I literally was so sore I couldn't move. But I finished it. And actually, so 2 weeks later, I ran another marathon. And then 2 weeks later, I know.
I love this.
My wife tells me I'm a little obsessive, but 2 weeks later I ran another marathon, and that marathon was like the Terry Fox thing where, I had this epiphany. I met a man, and he was running, and he had a T-shirt on, and it had all the states abbreviated on the back, all 50. Mm-hmm. And he had them all marked off except for Utah and, I don't know, like Alaska or something. Mm-hmm. And he had a little X's through him, and I ran up to him, and I said, "What the heck is that on your shirt?" And he says, "Oh, I'm a member of the 50 Staters Club." And I said, "Gee whiz, you have hours while you're out there." So I thought, well, I'll strike up a conversation. Yeah. So we're running, and I said, "Well, what is that?" And he said, "You run a marathon in each one of the 50 states." And it was like a hammer hit me in the head. I said, "Ding, I've got to do this. I've got to do this." And I finished that marathon, and I went home, and I told my wife, I said, "Look this up. Go online, look this up, 50 Staters Club." And she found it because, let's face it, there aren't that many 50 Staters Marathon Clubs. Maybe for crazy people, if you're crazy, do this. Yeah. And so I said, "Yeah, I'm going to do this." And so I had Utah down. And so I made a game plan, and I bought 12. This is so obsessive. When I say it out loud, it sounds crazy because most people run like one a year or two a year. Mm-hmm. So I sat down on the computer and I paid and signed up for 12 marathons that year. January, February, March. And my wife's like, "Are you sure you're not going a little overboard?" And I'm like, no, this will be perfect. One a month. One state a month. How bad could it be? Well, I'm not loaded in money. So I had this Saturn Vue, and the seats folded down. So I went and I got a foam pad, and I put it in the back with a sleeping bag. And I figured that'll save the hotel, and I can drive. And all the states I got were Western states. So the very next state I did was Idaho. I ran the Boise, and then I ran Oregon, and then I ran Washington, and then New Mexico, and it was the hardest part, honestly, was the driving. Texas is 23 hours one way. You run, and then you drive 23 hours back. And I didn't have a lot of PTO, like I said, I'm not a millionaire. So, wow. And I would do this alone, and, I'm trying to keep my eyes awake. And it was great, though. It was so much fun. And my wife would go when she could go. She went to Washington and Arizona, a bunch of others, and we would take a little mini vacay and have fun while we're there. So it was turning out to be not just to run marathons, but to have fun. Well, something happened to me at Marathon 12, and my body changed, and I didn't need to train as hard. I mean, I was running like 65, 70 miles a week.
Wow.
I cut it way back to like 45 miles a week. And I didn't get sore anymore. I would run a marathon. I stopped getting sore. So this gave me a great idea. It's going to take me like 5 years to run. So I thought, well, I'll get marathons that are together, close together in different states. So, and I would fly, like the first one I did was New England, and I flew to, I don't know where it was, name a New England state, Rhode Island. I flew to Rhode Island, and then I rented a car. And so I'd run the Rhode Island one. Then the next day they had one in like New Hampshire. So I drive to that. And then the next day was Connecticut. So I drove to that and ran
Oh
one.
my goodness.
I did 4 in a row.
Oh my gosh.
And I thought, yeah, I saved all that airfare. I saved all that hotel fare. Well, when I came home, I was so sore. You know, when they ask you at the airport, now, do we have any special needs people? You can board first. I got up and I couldn't even stand because, you know, and I had a cane. I had purchased a cane and I had my shorts on. And they're like, oh, yes, sir, you're definitely special needs. Well, I'm wearing like 4 marathon medals. And they're dinging. And they're like, oh, are these for these Special Olympics? And I'm like, yes. Just get me on the plane. Carry me on that plane and give me a double seat. I can't even move. And they were waiting on me hand and foot because I'm their special needs guy. They were giving me drinks and, you know, peanuts. And so I feel guilty saying that. But my gosh, I just run like, you know, to the moon and back.
You earned that.
Yeah, I earned that. And so I did that a bunch of times, actually. And then I decided, well, I don't need to do that so much anymore. When I got up to like number 30, you know, I figured, well, I can slow down a little. And we went to New York and we spent a whole week there. Gosh, was it great? Oh. And we went to Hawaii and we spent 2 weeks there after the marathon. And my 50th state was Disney World in Florida. We took the entire family and we stayed at the Disney Resort and we went alligator watching and this alligator jumped up on our boat and
oh my goodness.
I thought I was going to have a heart attack. Those things are frightening. They're like huge, 20 feet long. Yeah, they're dinosaurs. I don't know. But yeah, it's been fantastic. Well, then I decided I'd do something different. You know, I'd take up like puzzle building or coloring or something less physical. And it was miserable for me. I gained all this weight. I was nervous and shaky. So I started running again, lost all this weight. And I decided, well, I'm just going to stay local. And so I started running all the local races. And then, of course, COVID hit. Thank goodness.
Geez.
I had 5 marathons already paid for, including New York again. And of course, all 5 canceled.
Oh no!
And I still haven't run a marathon in over a year, so I'm getting a little itchy.
Antsy.
I've got one coming up May 1st in
Awesome.
Heber Valley, but I don't know. Who would have guessed, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Thank goodness for COVID. But I'm still running every day and still trying to keep in shape, and I just love it. It's just wonderful. And I've had my blade replaced a couple times because I've worn it out. The interesting thing, well, you know, of all the marathons, I've run 62 now.
Awesome.
I've only met amputees in 2 races,
Really?
Boston and New York. And all the amputees I met in New York will not run on their legs. They will only run with wheelchairs because they said it messes up their stump too bad. Mm-hmm. So
Really?
I was kind of the outcast, you know, among the dozen amputees or so that was there because I didn't have a chair, and I took off alone. It was a fantastic race though, and they bring us in our own area with our own tent, and the Mayor Bloomberg at the time showed up and shook all of our hands.
That's so cool.
And you'd think a man of his caliber, you know, would have words of wisdom to give you. All he asked, don't pee on my bridges. That's all he said.
What?
Yeah. He said, and please don't pee on my bridges.
Wow.
So I'm so inspired
Well,
now.
what's funny, I didn't have to go until he said that. And I'm thinking, where can I duck on this bridge to go pee? But I didn't.
Bloomberg will never know.
Yeah, he'll never know. But you go over all 5 bridges through all 5 boroughs. It's just a fantastic, you end up at the statue. You start at the Statue of Liberty, you end up in Central Park.
Oh.
So cool.
And everyone around you does not speak English. They're all from a foreign country, which is so awesome.
Cool.
There's Japanese people and Australian people. I guess they speak a form of English. You can't understand them. But I met so many wonderful people, and we're crowded, so they wouldn't, notice that I had a prosthetic leg. And after a while, they'd look down and, oi, you've got a prosthetic leg, and I'm like, what? What did you say? You're from Australia? I can't understand you. But it was wonderful, and the city was wonderful, and Hawaii was, I made a big mistake in Hawaii. You start in Honolulu on the beach, and you run 26 miles around Honolulu, and then you end on the beach. Well, I'm not used to that humidity being from Utah. And so I thought, well, the beach is right here. I just passed the finish line. Let's go for a swim. The second I took my leg off and I crawled out in the water and I jumped in. And the second that ice cold water hit me, I became stiff as a board and I had just one giant body cramp and I nearly drowned.
Oh my gosh.
And I couldn't even wave my arms to yell for help. And some guy who just happened to be watching this crazy one-legged guy jump in the water, he swam out and grabbed me and saved my life and pulled me in.
Whoa.
Well, I'm from Utah. I don't swim in the ocean. I didn't realize that, you'd get a giant body cramp. So it was pretty funny, but at the time it probably was more serious.
More scary.
But
good story now.
Yeah, good story now. But yeah, that was funny. I've seen it all. Every marathon has a different story, and it's a lot of bizarre things that happen. I got on the Boston Marathon. As I crossed the finish line, this guy who was we were racing, and he was he's less than half my age. He could have been 20 years old. And I heard, that unmistakable sound of someone throwing up. And the first place I felt it was the back of my head. And I'm running, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, what is that warm, gooey stuff on the back of my head? And I could feel it coming down my back. And I look down, and it's coming all over my blade and all over my shoe. And,
oh my gosh.
And we crossed the finish line, and I turned and I looked at him, and he was covered with it too. And he just kept saying, sorry, sorry. But it was so funny because he had a thick Boston accent. Sorry, sorry. And I'm like, no, don't worry about it.
Oh my gosh.
And wow, because, you have to imagine, you're already smelling pretty bad. And then a guy just heaves all over you. Nobody wanted to be around me. And I wanted to go eat because I was hungry. And people were like, why don't we go to the hotel first and you can shower up? How's that?
How could you think of food at that moment?
Yeah, it's all you think about. When I ran Wyoming, there was a Taco Bell. And you had to make, I think it was 3 passes around. And every time I'd pass this Taco Bell, I felt like stopping and running in and getting a taco. But it's all you think about when you run. You get so hungry. Yeah. I guess burning all those calories, but
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, it was odd. Yeah, every race has a different something. I got chased by a bear in Wyoming. Well, the ranger came out and said, here we are, we're trying to get in the mental frame and we're trying to gather our chi, and because you're going to run 26 miles. And he came out and he said, listen, there was a mauling here by a grizzly bear. A woman got mauled 5 days ago. We haven't found the bear. We were going to capture him and move him up higher up into the mountains, so he may still be here. We don't know. Well, it all went over my head. You know, I'm from Utah. I know bears. Yeah. Those little tiny black bears, not these giant house-sized grizzly bears. Yeah. Which I soon learned the difference. Okay, they're like 3 times the size of the bears we have down here.
Oh my goodness.
Well, I had run the entire marathon, and I could see the finish line. It was probably 3/4 of a mile away. Uh-huh. And all I wanted to do was get to it. Well, the ranger drives up, and there were probably 4 other people with me, and we're all running in together. And she drives up in her Jeep, and she stops, and she says, "There is a bear right up there, big grizzly bear." And sure enough, I didn't even notice it. Sure enough, this bear was huge. It could have eaten her Jeep, okay? They're massive. You see them in the zoo, and you just think they're so cute, but you see them out in the wild, they're frightening, you know? Yeah. And I'm so tired, and I just wanted to finish and get my medal and go home. And she says, "The marathon is over for you. You guys will not finish. Jump in the Jeep." Well, they start to go and jump in the Jeep, the 4 companions. And I said, "I don't care if this bear eats my other leg. I am not stopping. I'm less than a mile away. Are you out of your mind?" And she says, and she gets in her Jeep and starts following me because I won't stop. And I said, "You know, I don't care. I'm going to finish. I don't care." And she says, which I wasn't thinking, because all the oxygen in my brain had gone into my legs to keep me moving. So, you know, I was on like half brain power. And she said, she started spewing this legal jargon. "I cannot be responsible for your safety, nor will the state of Montana, nor will blah, blah, blah." And I said, I don't care. Well, everybody else jumped out of the Jeep, and because they said, "Well, we're going to finish if he's going to finish." Well, she drove between us and the bear. The bear was right there, literally where that wall is, and she was where the couch was, and I was about here. So that bear couldn't have been more than 12, 15 feet away from us. Oh my gosh. And it just stood there and watched us. And the closer I got, because the bear didn't look that big, the closer I got, man, that bear got bigger and bigger. And I was like the big hero because everybody's following my lead. And I started thinking, maybe I'm leading everybody to their death here. Maybe that wasn't the smartest thing to do. And by the time we passed it, it looked like a small, like a tough shed or something. It was massive. But we ran past with no incident, and it didn't even move. It barely lifted its head up to look at us. And we all finished, and that was that. But yeah, looking back, I probably should have jumped in the Jeep and maybe come back the next year and ran it again. But yeah, that was a load of fun there.
Wow, that's crazy. That's one of the fun things about running is the crazy stories,
all
right?
All the crazy stuff, yeah. The I don't know, and Hawaii attracts a lot of Japanese people. It's put on by JAL, the Honolulu Marathon, Japanese Airlines, and so they have no time limit. I finished that marathon. I went to the hotel. I showered. I went and ate. I came back, and people were still coming in because they basically walk. Most of them. They just do it for the thrill, and most of them aren't athletes, and it's cool
though.
But the best part, they dress up. They love to dress up, Japanese people, and they were dressing up as Pokemon, and there was the one couple. He was Godzilla and she was King Kong, and he was chasing her. Yeah, it was hilarious. Guy wore those wooden shoes and walk the whole thing in those, which they should have given him 2 medals for that. But,
yeah, ouch.
But yeah, all the costumes. I was probably, it's one of the largest marathons in the country, mostly because of all the Japanese people that are there. And there are probably maybe 3 non-Japanese guys, and I was one of them. And I had no costume. I had running shorts on, and they all kept asking me, "Oh, you, where's your costume?" And I'm like, I didn't know. Nobody sent me the memo, you know.
Like I just got my
yeah,
shorts, like that.
I didn't get the notice.
Yeah.
But
That's funny.
the weird thing about that marathon, you line up at like 3 a.m. and you start at 4 a.m. And I didn't know why so early. It's because the moment that sun comes up at 6 o'clock, the temperature just is baking and you die the whole time. So they want to make sure you've got at least 90% of it done before
that makes sense.
The heat hits. Yeah. And I don't know, it was an experience. Yeah. A lot of hills.
Yeah.
A lot of hills. But I had trained for it, so it's no
So
big deal. But
yeah.
That's
so cool though. Yeah.
When I was going to tell you this part. I was told, I've never had this happen, thank goodness, but when your blade breaks, they don't, when they break, they don't just bend and, you know, even though they look like a boomerang, they don't just bend. What happens, you won't even know that it's breaking, and then one day it will just break while you're running, usually, is what I'm told. And you'll hear like a gunshot. That's how loud the pop is when it snaps. And then it's just confusion and you're laying on the ground. So if you see any sign of it, a little frizzling or anything like that, little splintering happening, you have to go get it replaced immediately because the slightest splinter is indication that it's going to break.
Wow.
And so I'm always checking it every time I do a marathon, or every day actually after I train, I'll check it because I do not want it to ever break on me. Yeah. I mean, I would have to crawl on my hands and knees back to you know, wherever. Plus I started wearing my phone every day too when I trained because I thought, you know, if it ever did break, it would be better to call someone than
that's smart.
Than to crawl 5 miles back home or whatever. But
so tell us about, you're telling us this this morning. Tell us about the dragon on.
Yes. I have a decoupage dragon, which is interesting because my prostheticist, to earn his way through prosthetic school, did decoupage to earn money. And so when he started doing prosthetics, he just transformed that onto sockets and things for amputees. And he asked me, he said, would you like me to decoupage anything onto your socket? And I thought, well, yeah, I would love to have something. So I thought about it long and hard. You guys, I don't know if you can tell, but I have blue flames on the inside. He did both inside and out.
Oh, I did not.
Isn't that cool?
Awesome.
And I got a blue dragon, and I'm a black belt in karate, and I trained. I started at 13 years old. By the time I was 17, I was a black belt, and I didn't have my amputation until I was between 20 and 21. And I was actually a second-degree black belt by the time this happened. And I had a school back then, my own school, that was part-time. I did it in the evenings. And I always assumed I would never do karate again after my accident because I don't know. There's so many people in the world, thank goodness, willing to tell you that you can't do things, that you start to believe them. So I thought, yeah, you're right. I'll never run a marathon. I'll never have my own karate studio again. Well, I never would tell anyone. Now in the summer, I'm like every other Utahn. I never wear long pants. I always wear shorts. And I'm proud of it now. And plus back then, they would coat everything in rubber to make it look semi-real. And now the trend is, you know, to wear your prosthetic, and it's a lot more open. And so I had worked at my job at that time for years, and nobody knew that I was an amputee because I had worked on not limping and all of this. Well, there was a guy there who had his own karate studio, and he had opened several more, and he needed an instructor to train students at 2 studios. Well, I loved to talk karate, even though I didn't train anymore, and so we would talk all the time, and he knew that I was a black belt and I had trained for years and years. And he offered me a job one day. He says, listen,
Awesome.
you know, right in your area, I have 2 schools and I need a head instructor to go teach the classes there. And here's that awkward moment when you have to tell someone, I have a prosthetic leg.
Oh.
Well, I said that to him, and he laughed. He thought I was joking. And I said, no, really. And I showed him, and I took it off, and I actually handed it to him. And he said, you know, I never would have known. He said, I'm having tryouts. Why don't you come down and try out? And I'm not even going to be there. I'm not going to be the one who's hiring. One of my other black belts is going to do all the hiring. So I won't tell anybody. You come down. Well, I just kept saying, this is a waste of my time. This is a waste of my time. So I had kept in shape. I had stretched. I still remembered all of my moves. So I went down there and I wore my long gi pants and I wore what we call dojo shoes. You know, they have like no bottoms on them. And so I went in, and there were 2 other people, a man and a woman, and they had us all 3 line up and put us through our moves, and we had to spar. We had to do, it was like, oh man, it was brutal. It was like an hour and a half of, well, they wanted somebody who knew their stuff. Well, I felt pretty darn good afterward, you know, and I went home, but I thought, well, they're not going to hire me. And I got a phone call, and it was his head instructor, and asked me, yes, okay, can you start?
Awesome.
And I thought, well, okay, this guy doesn't know. I better let him know. I said, listen, I have a prosthetic leg. Do you still want to hire me? And the phone was quiet, you know, that dead, where you could hear the crickets. And I thought, well, this is it, you know. And he said, yes. He didn't say, really? You're kidding me? Or anything. He said, yes. And so I started, and it was wonderful. I'd like to retell that story again.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had a really very excited student, I'll say, very excited student. And he came in, and it takes about 3 months to earn your first colored belt. You start off as a white belt, and then you get a yellow belt. There were when I trained, my instructor was Japanese, and we had a white belt and a black belt, and you'd wear the white belt for like 6, 7, 8 years, and then you'd get your black belt. Well, for American students, kids especially, you have to give them something to shoot for. Americans want, they want that, yeah, you're doing good. Here's a green belt, here's a blue belt, here's a red belt. So we added like 10 or 12 belts. And so this guy earned his yellow belt. Well, I wouldn't spar with my students until they earned their first rank, because they needed to learn basics. Well, he was, he wanted to beat just the living hell out of me. Can I say that? And he started just coming at me with everything he had. And, I wasn't worried. I was blocking, but he was seriously just throwing these punches and these kicks like he was trying to break boards or bricks or something. And I kept warning him, slow down, slow down. Well, while I was talking to students, showing them, a technique, he jumped up before the bell rang and he socked me right in the jaw. And I saw little stars, and I thought, okay, this is it. I'm going to have to take this guy down and show him who the instructor is. And we went at it, and I was just beating him senseless. Well, he fell on the mat, and he grabbed my leg, trying to wrestle me down on the ground, which, of course, in sparring karate, you don't do. You don't, once you're on the mat, you don't grab each other. You can only grapple when you're standing. He tore my leg off. And I fell on the ground. And I had been training students I had had this school I had been operating for at least 3 years, if not closer to 4. And nobody ever knew that I had a prosthetic leg. And most of my students had won medals and trophies and everything in tournaments. They were so good, so good. And I fell on the mat, and he threw my leg on the mat. And yeah, it was one of those moments where you wanted to shrink to the size of a mouse and run in a little hole in the wall and shut the door behind you. And it was almost dreamlike. And there were probably 100 people there, probably 60 students. It was a large gym, and probably 40 people, parents and grandparents watching, and wives and husbands. And the place went from just this screaming, yelling, wonderful athletic competition to dead silent. And I didn't know what to say, so I said, could somebody hand me my leg? It was half meant to be a joke. Well, somebody did. They picked it up and they handed it to me, and they touched it as though it was, going to bite them or something, and they handed it to me, and I put it on. I took a deep breath. And I mean, I had fought like, black belts and bears, and I'm scared out of my mind to talk to, little children and parents and teenagers. And I stood up and I said, well, as you can tell, Sensei Tim has a prosthetic leg. And I thought they'd get a laugh. No, nothing. So I started to explain to him, well, I couldn't get a laugh. I could not get a laugh. Well, I ended class. I had everybody bow, and we left. And that was on a Friday. That was my last class of the week. Well, Monday comes, and I was down about half of my students. And I had parents there, and I had students there, adults, and they came up to me and said, I'm so ashamed at the deception that you've tried to pull on us. How dare you charge me full price, and you're a one-legged, what gives you and I'm like, for years I do the same kicks as you. I do everything you do. I beat you up on a regular basis every week, and you're telling me I'm not qualified? You had no idea. Well, crazy. I was really bummed out, and I thought, that's it, I'm going to quit. And I kind of limped through the rest of that week, and it was really hard. And I'm thinking, yeah, who am I kidding? Who am I kidding? And so I had a pair of students, twin. They were like 15-year-olds, but they were huge. They were powerful fighters, and their mother worked for the paper up in Ogden, and she wrote an article about me. And unbeknownst to me, I didn't even know, and she actually had photos, because she had taken photos of her sons fighting and stuff, and she had published those as well. And well, the following Monday, there were like 120 people standing there wanting to sign up. And I'm like, what is all this about? What is all this about? And they said, oh, we want to train with the one-legged karate guy, which I was just in shock, because here I am this close to quitting, and here they are wanting to double the size of my studio. And I actually had to turn people away because I didn't have enough room. And so I had to actually open up another class and at a different time and stuff to accommodate everybody. So it all worked out really well.
Oh.
So even though I was really mad at this one student for ripping my leg off, he actually helped me out. And yeah, it was quite amazing. And I don't know, it was at that point that I started to think, I'm not going to hide this anymore. And I never wore shorts. I never went to a public swimming area. And at that point, that was it. I wore shorts and sandals with the white socks pulled up, like every Utahn wears.
Oh yeah.
No, I don't wear that. Are you kidding me? But I thought, and now I was running a race in Kansas, and I pulled up to a water table, and there was a lady, and she was manning the station by herself, and she had her son there, and he was probably 4. Just the cutest little thing. And he says, "Oh, mommy, look, that man only has one leg. He has that weird leg." And she immediately cups her hand over his mouth and says, "Oh, no, don't say anything. Don't say anything." As though I would know that I had one leg. But, yeah, oh my gosh, I do. Ah! So I go, no. I said, it's okay. And I ran around the other side of the table, and I let him touch it and see it. Because I figured, the more kids, when we were little, you never saw anybody in a wheelchair out and about. You never saw anybody with one leg out and about. It was like a taboo, Oh, no, you're hurt. You stay in the house. You can't go anywhere or do anything. But it's with this technology and with our openness of society, it's so much more accepted. And I mean, I can remember, honestly, when I was in my wheelchair years and years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, wow, 40 years, holy cow, am I old. None of the curbs had cutoffs, none of the bathrooms. I would go to a mall, I couldn't get in the bathroom because the doors were so narrow, they wouldn't accommodate a wheelchair going in. I'd have to be lowered onto the floor, and I'd have to drag myself to the stall, lift myself up, and then crawl back out and then get up into the wheelchair. Well, now, of course, every bathroom has handicap accessible. And why is that? Because our society is starting to realize there's thousands and thousands of people like me. And so I like it when people notice. I like it. I had a woman, where was I? All the states run together. I don't know. We'll say Wisconsin. I can't even remember. And I ran up to the water station. I started drinking, and this lady runs up to me and she goes, "Can I get a picture of you with my dog?" And I thought, well, that is odd, Yeah, I guess. Well, she brings the dog. He's a 3-legged dog. So I thought, oh my gosh, that is hilarious. Cute. So I hugged this 3-legged dog, and he had his front leg missing. And I thought, wow, that is so cool,
Cute.
And then when I was in Mexico, we'll say, we were running downtown, down the main street, and all the shops open, because they can get a lot of foot traffic in, marathons going on. And it was a Saturday. Well, they had a nail salon, and they were advertising half price. And so I ran up there and I said, "Can I get 1/4 price for a pedicure?" And they didn't know if they should laugh at first, so they looked at each other. And then they all just started laughing. But I don't know. There's a lot of, like I said, I have a story with every race practically. So anyway, I feel like I'm doing all the talking.
No, this is great.
It's gold. Yeah, thank you.
So this is just what's so cool, right? Is you've some challenging experiences and some things that could get anyone down, but being able to just have this positive, great outlook on life. What's helped you to sustain that and maintain that, and to just be able to process all these things, and just it's so fun talking to you. You're just we're laughing and crying, and it's so fun.
I get asked this a lot, and I honestly just think it has to be. People are always asking me, well, what can I do to motivate myself? A lot of it has to do with my own personality. I've always been a problem solver. And if I have a problem, I try to solve it. And where I work, everything I do in my life, what I've chosen to do has always been problem solving. I did computers for 30 years. Mm-hmm. Now I work at IHC, and I actually help patients, and a lot of that, I mean, every case is different, and it's just problem solving. And so I think this whole thing, I woke up one morning in a hospital, and I thought, okay, this isn't going to work. This is not going to work. I am not going to spend the rest of my life, I like to be active. So what can I do to be active? And I thought, what can I do? So there's a movie, I'm going to quote a movie with Clint Eastwood, who I actually met one time.
Cool.
Clint Eastwood, Chuck Norris, man.
Yeah, the dude looks frightening on the big screen, but he only weighs like 100 pounds in real life. I'm sure I could take him. But anyway, a movie with Clint Eastwood, he said you have to learn to adapt, you have to modify and overcome. And so I've kind of used that as a philosophy. So I thought, well, what can I do? So to modify, I had to get a prosthetic leg. Then actually I had to learn how to walk on it and how to adapt it to my life, because it's not the same. And I want to write a book, or at least a pamphlet, a really thick pamphlet for other runners, because like I said, there's no amputee runners out there. Yeah. Very, very few. Mm-hmm. Because it just hurts too much. Well, it hurt me. It really hurt. And people say, so is that why you run? It doesn't hurt. You've overcome it. No, it hurts. But I've learned techniques how to overcome it. I almost quit running after about the third marathon. I would get these giant sores on my stump, and it was just too much. Well, instead of giving up, and my doctor said, give up. And I went to a specialist, and he said, stop running, take up, playing the violin or something. So I started finding any product I could find, like a rub, an ointment. After going through 100 different products, I finally found one that worked. Well, then I started using other products, like a tough skin type of product that you could put over. Then I started experimenting with, different supplements and different vitamins. I developed a large bump on the front of my stump, which just hurt. My doctor said it was a calcium deposit from irritating an injured part of my body. He said there's nothing he could do. Stop running. That will make the calcium deposit go away. So I went to 2 more specialists. They told me the same thing. And this thing was about the size of a small golf ball. And it was just hurting so bad. Well, I said, no, I'm not going to do that. So I researched online. It took me a long time. And what I discovered was that they told me to stop taking calcium supplements and stop running. What I discovered, I wasn't taking enough calcium deposits. And the calcium was collecting where the injury was in the bone, because I didn't have a lot of bone there. So I tripled my calcium intake. They told me to stop taking it. Yeah. Well, within weeks, that bump went away, and it's never come back. And I've continued to take giant amounts of calcium. So I would like to write all of that down for anyone else who might be an amputee who goes through the same problems as me. So they won't have to, research what ointments to use. They won't have to research what, all these different techniques. And there's just things you wouldn't even think about. When you run a marathon, you want to not tighten your shoestring very tight, because at about, it's different for different people, but for me, about mile 10, my foot starts to swell up and it hurts. Now, a lot of people will stop and loosen their shoes. I just start off with mine loose. Well, what do you do when your stump swells up? Oscar Pistorius, he got in trouble a few years back, but he's a double amputee and he's been in the Olympics, not the Special Olympics, but the regular Olympics. I got a phone call with him from South Africa.
Wow.
And I wanted to ask him what he does when his stumps swell up, because your prosthetic case is your socket is hard, so it won't expand like a shoe can expand. You can't untie it and expand it. So what do you do? Well, he called me. Actually, his secretary called me and said, here's Oscar, and he says, "Oi, what you want?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, Oscar Pistorius." At the time, he hadn't been in any trouble, so I was a big fan of his. And I said, Oscar, and I had written it down because I didn't want to mess up. And I said,
got it scripted.
Yeah, I got it scripted. I said, when I run, my stump swells up, and obviously my socket won't expand, and it hurts really bad. What do I do? And I could hear him thinking, I could hear the wheels moving. And he says, I don't know if I can say the nasty word. He said, "Is this rated G here?" He says, "Oi, Tim!" He says, "Stop being a pussy and man up!" And he barked it at me on the phone. Well, his accent was really terrible because he's from South Africa. So I figured I misunderstood him. And I'm like, I'm sorry, Oscar, what did you say? He says, "You heard me. Stop being a pussy and man up." And I went, "Okay, thank you." And he hung up after that. That was our whole length of our phone call.
What?
But I took it to heart, and I said, okay, there's some good advice there. I am being a big old baby. I've got to man up, cowboy up here. Okay? Wow. I got to take Oscar's advice because he's the man, right?
Oh my
So
goodness.
I started taking Tylenol and ibuprofen, and that actually helped, but different combinations of it, and I actually created a rub made with, crushed stuff that I put on that actually keeps the swelling down quite a bit. And so I feel that I've taken Oscar's advice, and I I manned myself up. He could have been a little more constructive.
I think would be friends.
He was, but he's a professional athlete, so I figured maybe that's
There's
just, they don't take guff. They don't take excuse from some, wussy Utah guy. So I thought, but I don't know. It was a shocker. It took me a while after he hung up. I'm like, "Hello, Oscar, I think, hello, overseas operator, hello." But and the funny thing was I ended up paying for the call. It came on my phone bill later. Isn't that hilarious? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but that was all set up through mutual people, and I thought, this guy's he's got the knowledge. He's going to tell me. Well, I would never put that in my pamphlet that I'm going to write. But because again, I thought, well, should I just quit? Is this too much for me? Yeah. When I went to New York, that was the most amputees I'd ever met. And I couldn't get one of them to agree to run with me. They were all, "No, we're staying in our chairs because it's just too painful." And it made me pretty proud because I thought, okay, you can't run with them, obviously. They finish a marathon in an hour. I mean, they fly. They go 35 miles an hour. They're flying.
Wow.
Yeah, so as soon as the race started and they took off, I never saw them again, but till the end. But it did make me pretty proud because I got to start in the very front. They had the challenged athletes. I like that word. Challenged athletes start in the front. And that way, because I'm pretty slow, I got to see every single, 70,000 runners passing me. And so it was pretty fun. But,
what an experience.
Yeah.
You just have the best attitude and the best outlook stories. And the best stories.
I think it's part of my personality. If you're just, I've never let anything get me down. And plus, my life's been perfect. I've never had any problems or issues. As I roll my eyes. No, everybody has tons and tons of problems and things to overcome. And I don't know. I actually enjoy overcoming stuff.
Because it makes you stronger, right?
It does. What did I can't think of his name. That which does not kill you makes you stronger. Well, it will eventually kill you, but enjoy the time that you're getting stronger.
Yeah.
I mean, I love shocking people too. It's pretty fun, What I do, this is good. Don't tell anybody I do this. I'll wear my sweats to a marathon and I'll hang out with everybody. And then just before the race, I'll go to the DI and I'll buy like dollar sweats so I don't care. And I just take them off and I'll just throw them and I'll say, okay, let's go. And all these people that I had just met an hour before, they're just standing there with their mouths agape. And they don't know, oh no, am I going to insult you? And they'll say, no, don't take this the wrong way. And I'm just waiting. What? Don't take what the wrong way? What are you going to say? And I just lead them on. It's hilarious. Or I'll get people and they'll start off by saying, would it be okay if I asked you a question? And they'll say, your leg, can I ask you a question about your leg? And I'll say, oh yeah, the scars and stuff. No, the other leg, the other leg. And
that's funny.
I was running, oh gosh, I don't know where. Iowa, we'll say, and they had an announcer, and he was really great on the microphone. You could hear him as you're running up to him. And they had speakers for like a half a mile in either direction, and as everybody would run by, he'd make a little comment about him, and he'd say, yeah, I wish I was down there with you guys. I wish I was running with you, but I can't be because I'm an amputee, and he had the same amputation that I had, exactly, even on the same leg.
Wow.
And I could hear him saying that, and I'm thinking, well, what does that have to do with anything? And I kept getting closer, and the guy directly in front of me, he said it again. He says, yeah, I'd like to be down there, but I'm an amputee, and amputees can't run in marathons. Well, I get up there and I jumped up on the stage and there were thousands of people, spectators, because this was a big deal. Yeah. And I pulled my blade off and I sat down, I pulled my blade off and I said, dude, you can do anything you want to do and don't let anybody tell you different. And again, it was just like crickets, And he's like, oh, you got me. Oh, you got me. You got me good. You got me good. And I popped my leg back on and I kept running. And I could hear him talking about me for the next half mile. Oh, that guy got me good. Oh, he got me good. Oh, I'm coming out next year. I'm going to be out there next year. And
wow.
But that's our society. Oh, you're hurt. You can't do anything. Oh, I'm sorry. We'll make you the announcer. You obviously can't run, but yeah, it made my millennium just to shock everyone
that is awesome.
And to inspire this guy. Yeah. When I was in New York, I had a fellow run with me, and I ran with Achilles, and they're a group of challenged runners, and they're really big in New York. They started in New York, and I had a fellow run with me. Now, his legs were both fine, but from the waist up, he was terribly burned, and his arm had actually been burned completely off. What? And his face was burned, and he couldn't speak because he had all these burns, and he was blind in one eye, and all his hair had been burned off. And he had two people running with him, guides running with him, and they came up and asked me, can we run with you? And I'm like, yeah, of course you can. And we got to mile 7. And we were doing great. I was feeling great. Everything was great. You could smell the bagels. New York's so wonderful. And we're running, and he stopped to get some water. And his two guides came up and they said, well, he could only do hand signs with one hand, which I thought was amazing. They said, he told us to tell you thank you for letting him run with you, and maybe he'll see you another year. And I'm like, what are you talking about? We've got, 19 miles more to go. And they said, oh, no. They said, this is the farthest. He's run this 7 or 8 times. This is the farthest he's ever gotten. He usually only goes 2 or 3 miles. But because, I get all choked up, but because of you, he's run like double that today. He's never run. This is the furthest he's ever run. We've run with him every year. Even when he trains, he never runs more than a mile or 2. And I'm like, wow, really? And they said, yeah. And the pace that you set too, he's never run that fast. We've never gotten him, and we are his trainers, and we try to get him to run, and he won't run that fast. But he wanted to keep up with you. Oh, I'm all cry. I'm really tough in real life. You could hit me and I would never cry. But and I thought, wow, that's pretty good. So, 2 guys who had no challenges could not motivate this guy, but I could. So I thought, not bad,
Wow.
So, and it was funny too, because the next day whole group of us met at this restaurant, and I recognized one of the wheelchair guys, and he was sitting there and was eating, and I came up and I started talking to him. Well, I had pants on, long pants, and he didn't recognize me at all. And I said, so how'd you do in a race? Well, sometimes challenged athletes get annoyed by people who have no idea what they're talking about, or, and he was getting annoyed by me. And I said, and I was asking him a lot of personal stuff, and so how did you feel at, mile 12? And finally he says, I know that you're trying to be nice to me, but I don't really want to talk about this anymore because you can't really relate with what I'm going through. And I said, oh, it's me, it's Tim, don't you remember? And I pulled my pant leg up and I said, I'm the guy on the blade. And he's like, I am so sorry, I didn't even know. He said, you walk so good, I didn't even know. And then he invited me to have breakfast with him, sit down and eat with him. But that's the first time I learned that there's even a, I don't want to say a prejudice, but there's there's elite groups of runners who don't want weekend runners sitting with them. There are elite groups of people that don't want other people who can't relate to them with them. And even among the challenged runner group, there is an elite group of them who, they guard themselves because they don't want to have to explain to everyone every time. Well, when did you, because he was expecting me to say, well, when did you get hurt? Well, what made you, that sort of thing. And when he realized, wait a minute, this guy's in our group, he's one of us. So it's funny that you meet prejudice wherever you go. You meet prejudice wherever you go. And so for some people to think, oh, I'm being prejudiced against because, I'm Catholic, or I'm Black, or I'm Jewish, or I'm short, or I'm tall, or I'm a man, or I'm a woman. Don't worry, everybody gets prejudiced against, is what I have found out. Everyone has something that they're insecure about and they're trying to overcome. And so, if we could all just learn to drop it, it'll be so much better. And I've had people come up to me in races. This happens a lot. We'll just say a lot, where they'll say, oh, are you running? Because they'll run on the same day a 5K, 10K, half, and a full. And they'll come up and say, oh, are you running the 5K? No, I'm not. Oh my gosh, you're not running the 10K, are you? No, don't worry, I'm not. Well, then it's the 5K, right?
Oh
no.
my goodness.
Well, you can't be running the half marathon. There's no way a person like you. Well, what do you mean a person like me? Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, I'm not running the half. Oh, I knew it. You're running the 5K, right? I get this all the time.
Wow.
I had a police officer chase me because at the split where the half marathoners go to the left and the full marathoners go to the right, I went to the right, and he chased me on his motorcycle for a mile. You're going the wrong way, sir. Why am I going the wrong way? Half marathon's that way. Oh, I know that. I'm going this way. He goes, but he wouldn't come out and say, I don't think you can make a full marathon because you're wearing a prosthetic leg. He was trying to be as politically correct as possible. Yeah. And finally, he just gave up and drove off. And he said something rude. They always end with something rude. Every time this happens, wow. Your funeral, and he drove off. I had a woman chase me, it seemed like 3 miles. And we passed the half marathon finish. And she had a half marathon bib on. And she got her medal and kept chasing me, telling me, no, the finish was back there, turn around. She chased me to like probably mile 16 before she couldn't run anymore and gave up. And I'm like, I'll see ya. And she again said something rude, Well, when you're in the hospital, don't blame me.
Yeah.
Wow.
But isn't that funny? So there is a lot of closed-mindedness still, that you can't do things, and you'll have so many people come up and say, oh, don't dream that big, you can't do it, no matter what it is. Oh, I want to climb Mount Everest. Oh, I want to jump out of an airplane, preferably with a parachute, is what I meant to say. Yeah, don't go skydiving, how's that? Scuba diving's too dangerous, you can't do that. But anybody can do anything.
Amen.
If they want. The
Amen.
end. You can live anywhere, you can go to school anywhere, you can do anything. And I know this is just about running, but it pertains to everything.
Absolutely.
Oh, I'm all cry again. But I have allergies, and I'm thinking of, Bruce Lee's death and stuff.
Course,
That's what's making me
course.
cry. So.
Well, I feel like that's kind of turned into the point of the show. Kind of the theme is we've met with so many people where when they're faced with an obstacle where most people would stop, they kept going and they figured out a way around it.
Yeah.
And another thing I wanted to say is it's really neat that there are a lot of people who are inspirations to you on your journey.
Oh, yeah.
And
so many.
And they were
many.
the ones who kept you going, and now look at what you've done to inspire other people and get other people going.
That's true. I had a friend that I met in Boston, one of 2 marathons I ran in, where I actually saw an amputee, and he actually ran with me. He was from, I think, Thailand, and he's sponsored by his country. They don't have, billion-dollar basketball stars and baseball stars, and so he's like their big star over there, and they pay him to run, and that's his job basically. And which I have to say, I whooped his butt. I whooped his butt. I beat him by like nearly 45 minutes. Okay,
Awesome.
Bam, in your face. But what a super wonderful guy. He really inspired me.
Wow.
Talk about a fantastic attitude. And he was so nice. I was just standing there. Boston is such a zoo. There are so many people and hundreds of buses. And, as you might guess, the Boston Marathon and thousands of people. And plus the same weekend, there's, so many things going on. There's baseball and oh my gosh. Wow. And we were standing there and I was feeling like this tiny little goldfish in the ocean, And he saw me and came up to me and he says, oh, you like me. Oh, you run with one leg. And we became best friends. We're still friends on Instagram and Facebook. And
Awesome.
We tweet each other. And he he was just, his story, because he grew up poor and destitute, and the way he lost his leg was so tragic, and yet he's overcome it, and now he's just this, everyone, when he goes home, everyone knows who he is, and he goes on talk shows there and opens restaurants and all kinds of fun things. Yeah. And talk about just a wonderful attitude, and even though I whooped him, he is quite the athlete. He is quite the athlete. But I don't know. It's just amazing. Yeah, he's just one of the many people I've met, and I don't know. I could write a book on just the amazing people I've met and who have given me inspiration.
Oh.
So.
Yeah. Well, I just, like, this is what I love about the people that you talk about and your own experiences, and just hearing how you relate to other people. I think when things get challenging, a lot of us turn inward, right?
Yeah.
It's easy to kind of collapse into ourselves.
Depression. So hard.
But to be able to, like, it sounds like to be able to be authentically yourself has helped you connect with other people, has helped you help other people, and has helped you maybe get outside of a shell you might have otherwise gotten into, and be able to, like, relate to other people at their level. Like, I love what you said. Everyone has their own challenges. Everyone's going through something. But if we're able to just be open with one another, if we're able to be authentically ourselves and just love other people for who they are, I think that.
As a kid, I loved Tarzan. He was my hero. I own all the Tarzan books. I've read them all. And Tarzan had no fear. He didn't know what fear was. He lived in the jungle where death was, seconds away everywhere he turned. And I remember I was telling someone about Tarzan, and they said, well, you kind of remind me of Tarzan. And I'm like, because I live in the jungle, and I live with apes. Yeah, what he's the greatest. How do I remind you of him? And they said, well, in November, I drove in my car to Denver, Colorado, over the mountains in a terrible snowstorm. I watched 3 different vehicles slide off. I got to Denver. I slept in a Walmart parking lot in the back of my Saturn Vue. Got up, ran the marathon the next day. Didn't know anybody there. Didn't know where I was. Never been to Denver before. Ate at some fast food restaurant. After the race was over, drove back in the storm alone over the mountain. Saw a couple more accidents, and they said, normal people don't do that. It's just too scary. Why would you do something so scary? So you're sleeping in a Walmart parking lot. And I thought, yeah, well, maybe I am like Tarzan. You have to overcome your fear and just do what you want to do. And I don't know, not think about it. Now thinking about it, if my kids were to do something like that, I'd smack them in the head. I'd say, what were you thinking? Yeah. But at the time, all I wanted was that Denver gold, man. That's all I wanted. Yeah. I have a funny story about that too. I was running, and Denver's the exact same elevation. Everything is Salt Lake, same climate, everything. And I'm running, I'm feeling fantastic. And I see these 3 guys, and they were like my same age. And they're on the road, and it looked like they had died. And they're like laying in the snow, and they're just dying. And I ran up to them, and I said, hey, what are you old guys doing? Have you died? And they look up, and they say, oh, we're from back east. We can't handle the elevation here. We can't breathe. And they're like huffing and puffing. And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? It's perfect here. This is, of all the places I've run, Denver so far has been the most perfect. And so, I made sure they were alive. I kicked them and stuff, made sure they were okay before I took off. And then I started thinking about it. oh, wow, this is going to be tough when I start going back east and these locations which it was, it turned out, yeah, when you go to different elevations, it's really difficult. But it's just, again, something that normal people would think about, but a runner, you know, oh, I got to run. I got to go do that marathon there. You don't even think about, gee, am I going to, you know, suffocate? Am I going to have, you know, what are the conditions? Is it raining that day? Is it snowing that day? Yeah. You just go, you do it, and then you worry about later, you know.
Worry about the consequences
yeah.
later.
So.
That's a runner for you. That's why runners are called crazy, right? Everyone calls us crazy.
It's pretty fun. I have learned, though, that the DI is one of the best places to buy running clothes, because as you strip off your clothes, you don't have to worry about your $80 Adidas sweatshirt laying on the ground. Will I ever see that again? Oh, no, this was my, you know, $1.25 DI sweatshirt. Yeah.
And then you can rip the sweatpants off and surprise people. So
you can shock them. What? Okay, don't tell anybody this either. But I've actually cut them so that they rip off like the Chippendales guys for effect.
Hilarious.
And I'll say, okay, let's run this, and I'll rip them off. And that even adds to the effect. And I'll just hurl them like a Chippendales guy off the stage. But
that's hilarious.
But I figure, you know, I paid under $2. What the heck?
Yeah.
Why not? Totally worth the surprise factor.
It's worth it. I helped DI out. I'm, you know, helping these guys out by shocking
Putting
them.
on a show.
Yeah, put on a little show for them.
Well, way to have fun with it.
I had $1 once stuffed in. No, that's not true. When I ran my 50th marathon, Cigna, the big insurance company, they helped sponsor me a little for that. And the president of Sigma, who's a big runner, asked me, can I run with you? And I said, sure. And I mean, this guy's probably rich like Bill Gates rich. And we're running, and we're in the middle of Disney World, okay? Thousands of people. Then you have thousands of people running, and I see a $1 bill on the ground, and I stopped to grab this $1 bill because it's a $1 bill, you know? That's kind of my thing. If I see money, I pick it up. I tripped 2 people that were behind me.
Oh, no.
This guy from Cigna started laughing so hard, I didn't think he was going to be able to stop and finish the race. Because he's probably thinking, you know, here I'm helping sponsor this guy. I brought him all the way out here to Disney World, and he's going to stop in the middle of the race to pick up $1. But I don't know. We have a bunch of pictures of me and him at the end with the $1 bill. And I've never spent it. I wrote on it my lucky $1 bill, and I got it in my wallet. But I don't know. It's just weird personality things. You know, I'm not going to leave $1 on the ground.
Of course not.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
I love it.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to share with us.
Sure.
It's
I
been
know.
a treat.
Grizzly bear and we got all sorts of stories. So it's been fantastic. We really appreciate you coming in.
Sure.
If people want to learn more about you, where can they find you?
You can look at my blog. I actually have a blog, runningonmylastleg.com.
Awesome.
You can go on that. Yeah, my wife came up with that great idea. Yeah, and I tell people, and again, they don't know if they should laugh. Running on my last leg. Did he mean to say that?
It fits your personality very well.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a joke. That was meant to be a joke, so you can laugh. Yeah, you can go on there. Or my, and you can message me from my blog and things, or my Instagram account. I guess that's how I found you guys.
Yeah.
Which just put in Tim Hurst. And it'll pop up. There's a lot of Tim Hurst, but they're all so boring compared to me.
Obviously. I mean,
It'll be easy to find you, yeah.
Well, awesome.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate it a lot. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and follow our page so you can get more inspirational stories like this.
Thanks for listening to Running Unbroken. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and reach out if you or someone you know has a story to share.